I am Kyle Haraldson. I am the creator and architect of Swimage. I am also the CEO of Logical Design Solutions. Today I'm going to demonstrate an in-place migration of a Windows operating system using Swimage. I am now going to go ahead and show you a migration. This particular scenario is going to go from Windows 7 to Windows 10. I'm going to demonstrate in this how it will capture all the data. It will do the complete drive snapshot. It will scan and reinstall all applications. It will apply all settings, migrating settings from the previous system to the new system, as well as adding additional settings from the roles and templates you've defined in Swimage. So what I'm going to do is I'll start with how this is laid out to kind of show you how this works. Okay, we've got data in various locations. Got some Word files on the desktop. I've also got a few documents in the documents folder. You can see it's going to pull everything from documents, pulls everything actually from your libraries, including your pictures, music, videos, 100% that's in there. And then based on a set of rules, it decides, what it needs to do based on the rest of the drive. So for example, I have another folder called Kyle. In this is a smattering of different files that I threw in here. And based on rules that I set up, it's going to scan and capture all Office documents, it captures text files, and it captures pictures and things like that. But things that are not considered documents or data, it excludes, including certificates that I have laid out here, as well as script files and executables and things like that. Reason I do that is to demonstrate what it does and what it doesn't grab. However, even if it misses a file that's important, and this link certificate happens to be very important to me, it's not going to grab it intentionally because I excluded it on purpose for this presentation, but it's going to save it in our snapshot, and I'll showcase after it's migrated where that's at and how to retrieve it in the event that you migrated a machine and it failed to capture some of the data because it wasn't encompassed in some of the rules. Go ahead and do to start is I insert the Swimage kit. It's a USB stick that goes into this device. Now this exact process can be done remotely. It can be done through SECM. You can push this out zero touch, but for this I'm doing the Swimage kit. One of the reasons is it demonstrates that you can send the content kit to a home user and they can run this on their own. This is, one of the benefits of Swimage, that they can give it to the home users or whoever's remote office or whatever, and they can actually do in-place migrations, or they can do PC swaps with very little IT expertise needed. So I load this and I'm going to go ahead and launch Swimage. When I do this, you get the Swimage deployment kit comes up. And it gives you a couple of options. The main two options here are number 2 and 3, which is reinstall Windows on this computer, transfer data to a new computer. The first option in here is update this USB deployment kit. This forces them to update the USB deployment kit, and we have a process which that gets updated from the cloud. And then you also, if they want a little bit of training, we do have deployment training videos on the stick itself. So if they're not sure how to do it, they can watch the video. Very easily, simple walkthrough on the process. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do a reinstall Windows on this computer. If I had a new computer, I would do transfer data to new computer. That's in a separate demonstration. But that basically allows you to put a new PC next to this one and crossover cable. It'll actually do the migration on the new computer, transfer all settings, all data, reinstall the applications from the old PC. I'm going to do reinstall on this computer. And I'm going to hit begin. First this thing does is analyzes your system and determines exactly what needs to be deployed on it and kind of the state of the land, doing a little bit of diagnostics, validating that this machine is healthy enough to actually do the deployment. Right now it's detecting the computer ID. What you can do is you can send this stick out to a user that has it pre-provisioned, basically meaning that all settings have already been defined based on the computer's serial number. So it detects the computer ID's serial number and it just goes ahead and builds the machine. Because I have not pre-provisioned this machine on this stick for demonstration purposes, it will pop up a dialog box called the future state, which allows you to configure the machine, give it the computer name and assign the roles in that, all that kind of stuff. But like I said, you could skip this if you already knew what this machine needed. And again, you give it to the home user and they don't have to do anything except hit the go button, and an hour later they have a completely rebuilt machine. So the computer name, it pulls up the current name, or you can change that if you want to. Okay, I'm going to leave it alone. But I'm going to say Windows 10 in-place migration is the role that I'm going to select. Okay, and then you have a series of templates you can also assign to this machine based on maybe you want some additional applications, you want additional settings, that sort of thing, you can assign a template. What the template will do is add an additional layer of configuration. It may add applications, it may add registry tweaks, or change the language and things like that. The details tab gives you information about the domain, where it's pulling data from, the WIM name, location, that sort of thing. Status, how it's managing data. Applications, or which applications are going to get installed. You have registry settings, which you can tweak the thing to death. Same thing with install actions, turn on and off features, disks for partitioning and such. Everything in this role is already predefined. The ID behind it having very little that you would have to do, because the role itself defines almost everything. You don't really have to touch anything else, and I'm not going to. You could, as you can see, you can change an awful lot about how this migration is going to happen, but I like to keep things simple. We'll just say deploy Windows 10 in place migration and hit the continue button. That's pretty much all I have to do here. Now, once this thing is going, it really doesn't take a whole lot of time at all. Entire migration itself usually takes less than an hour to do. Now, keep in mind that it does a 100% reinstall of Windows 10. This is absolutely not an in-place upgrade like a lot of companies, including Microsoft, will do an in-place upgrade to Windows 10 from Windows 7 or Windows 8. And not a good method, because you can run into problems along the way. You don't have really control over what gets installed. It just does what was on the machine and sort of does its best effort to upgrade it to Windows 10 right in place. The problem with that is you end up with a garbage in, garbage out scenario. If you had a virus on the old system, you're going to still have that same virus on the new system. So what this does is, because it completely wipes out everything that's on the drive and does a complete ground up rebuild of the operating system, you don't have any of that residual stuff left behind. However, Swimage does give you the benefit of protecting all your data, saving all your data, restoring all your data, so that you'd never have to worry about, whoops, I missed something. So it kind of gives you the best of both worlds, and it's extremely fast. Like I said, this process, usually takes less than an hour. Many times you can just, do it overnight, over lunchtime. Users can do it at will. If the user were doing this, it would be literally put the stick in, hit the go button, go watch a movie, come back, and their PC is going to be completely rebuilt. There's absolutely no user intervention whatsoever needed after it starts the process going. The really cool thing about it as well is that it does a lot of reporting. So behind the scenes, it's logging every step along the way. It's incredibly resilient in the fact that if it has a problem along the way, can't read a sector, or an application is missing, or bombs out for whatever reason, even someone comes in, freaks out and unplugs the machine midway through, it's resilient enough to know exactly where it stopped. All you have to do is power it back on, turn it back on, and it skips all the steps that it's already done and just carries on and retries the step that it had the failure on. There are certain rules that you can set up to determine how it handles certain errors that it finds. So if it can't reinstall an application or install an app, the default is retry 5 times, reboot in between the 5 times. Most of the time, if it's a bad app, it's a bad app, but you'd be surprised how often it works the second time around or the third time around. If it fails the 5 times, it does stop and say, hey, this application failed, what would you like me to do? You could skip it, retry again, or ignore, or whatever. Now, that's the out-of-the-box settings for that, but you can change its behavior to say, if it fails an application, immediately stop, or just completely ignore and keep going on like nothing happened. Regardless, it's going to log all that information. So at the very minimum, you'll have a really good understanding of what happened with the application or with the entire deployment. And, that log will show you in pretty good detail exactly which applications succeeded and exactly which applications failed. So if you need to go back and visit a machine, what to visit and what might be a problem with it. Now here you can see it's in the WinPE phase, and this is where it actually drops the image down, which it's already done. It goes relatively quickly. And then it does a process where it detects the type of hardware it is and specifically injects the drivers. That's what it's doing at this point. Understand that Swimage is completely agnostic of hardware. The image is a single image. It's independent of any hardware type. So what it does is at the time of deployment, it drops the image down completely void of all drivers, and then detects the type of system it is, and at that point grabs all the correct drivers for that machine, injects them before it even boots into Windows. So Windows thinks that the image dropped with all the drivers when in fact it did not. That's a great method because it keeps your images very flexible, very clean, and very thin, because you don't have a lot of drivers that you're never going to use on one machine clogging up the system. So now Windows 10 is booting up. It goes through the out-of-box experience. This is, again, is fully automated. Swimage injects all the settings so that it answers all the correct responses for what Windows 10 needs to build this machine. When this is complete, it's going to auto log in, and a lot of folks would say that it's finished at that point because Windows 10 is installed, but Swimage, it's not finished. It's not finished until the user has everything that the user needs, including all settings, applications, components, whatever. So Swimage is going to continue to go through this process, until it's completely ready for the user to log in. The idea behind that is that when the PC is done migrating with Swimage, it's user ready. The user logs in and they don't really have to do anything and just continue doing their work. Windows 10 continues to go through the process of configuring the first run of the system. Here's Swimage logging in for the first time, and the first boot up to the new operating system, it runs a quick pass to make sure all the drivers that were installed through plug and play are installed properly, so it can run manual configurations of video cards and things like that in this phase, which is nice because this phase does not require any network connectivity whatsoever, because all of that is run completely independently of the network and even independent of the USB stick, so that if there's drivers for USB 3 or network drivers, stuff that need to be manually configured, that's the phase in which you would do that. So at this point it goes ahead and does that process. It'll restart, and the next reboot, what it's going to do is it's going to log into Windows 10 again and immediately start doing the customization and installing the applications. There you go, you see the login screen, and the Swimage conductor is going to start running. So the Swimage conductor is the program that drives the entire process beginning, and it's the same program that manages the entire migration. And as this is running, it does every single step. It tracks all the progress. It does all the reporting, and it's an incredibly resilient little program that makes sure that the migration is going to be successful end to end. You'll see it doing the customizations and installing the applications, and this phase can take anywhere from a handful of minutes to maybe 30 minutes or so, depending on the number of apps that need to be installed. And one of the things that Swimage does is that every phase and even before it even starts the process, it does a validation. Validation being it needs to ensure that this deployment or this step is going to be successful before it continues and potentially fails. So it does validate everything, every step along the way. And so it really does minimize, any of the errors you might get that you would normally see in a standard deployment process that, someone tries to sort of hack together like MBT or something like that. Right now it's going into the process of copying USMT, which is the core engine that Swimage uses for the data migration. Swimage does use a lot of other logic around USMT to make sure USMT itself doesn't fail. And it also has the snapshot and wrappers to make sure that under no conditions, regardless of if USMT works or doesn't work, you will ever lose data. We've done thousands upon thousands of migrations, and proud to say that there's been no instance of data loss due to anything that Swimage has done. We have, in fact, had more users when we deliver the PCs very, very surprised that the amount of data that we have been able to save and capture. A few of them, oddly enough, complained that we migrated too much because they were really kind of hoping a migration is what they're used to, which is, kind of like burning down the house and cleaning up their data without them having to clean it up. So surprisingly, we do, a really, really good job at migrating everything. We figure if they want to delete something, they can delete it themselves. We're not going to delete it for them. We're just going to migrate it. Data migration's done. It's in the very final phases where it locks down the PC, cleans up the system, removes Swimage completely from the machine as far as the program that is managing it. Swimage is very good at managing deployment, but once the PC is finished, it's not a resident agent or anything like that sits on there. If you need to start the process again, you push out this client again to the machine, and it will redeploy. There it is. It's finished. That's the last reboot. And when this is booted up, we can go ahead and log in. There we go. We'll switch over to my test user. I'll go ahead. There we have it, a Windows 10 machine that pretty much looks exactly like it did under Windows 7. Migrated the desktop, migrated all your applications, migrated all your programs. Okay, so let's go ahead and show you some of the things that it did migrate. If you remember, the exact same documents in here. I've also got all my pictures. My vacation pictures are still all there, which is very nice. The other thing that we'll see when we go in is I want to show the snapshot. Now this is typically a hidden folder, and you can even protect it from the user so they have zero access to it. A little bit of a double-edged sword. We tell the users that this exists so that they don't have to worry about data. In fact, they can go in and retrieve the data if they want to. The other side of that sword, if you tell people it's well protected, then sometimes they get lazy. But I'd rather be on the side of caution on that, and regardless of what the user knows about it, it's going to still protect the entire file system. So Swimage backup contains, if you look in the rollback folder here, an exact duplicate of everything that was on the drive previously. So if I take a look at that, let's go ahead and open up another Explorer folder down here and show you what got restored. You're going to see under the Kyle folder, it captured 3 of the 6 files I had in here, and like I said, I set this up intentionally to demonstrate. It doesn't capture everything because not everything would be considered data, but someone put something in there on the root of the C drive. It's not standard location. No matter what kind of rules you set up, it's very difficult to know everything about that. That's what this snapshot is for, so that you can, regardless of the rules, you can capture everything. So the instructions back to the user or the IT help desk that say, go into the rollback folder. You missed 3 applications. You can go in and say, I want to grab these files, and you can simply just move them. Actually, is the best method for this. It's pretty much an instantaneous from one to the other, and that way data can be restored very quickly. Common question that comes up is, what's the footprint of this Swimage backup folder that it does? And it's really based on the amount of free space that is required to deploy the machine, and that free space is a footprint of the operating system and the applications that need to get installed. The restored files don't take up any additional space because the files are not duplicated whatsoever. You'll see files in 2 different locations. To give you an idea, go back into the Kyle folder here. You'll see this logs file here and here. They're in both places. It's actually the same file. It's just referenced from 2 different locations. This is what we do when we manipulate the file system. When we do the snapshot, it's a low-level method for us to do the snapshot, which literally takes seconds to do the snapshot this way. Very, very fast, but a very effective way of protecting 100% of the data. It has proven to be extremely valuable in doing migrations because the IT staff can actually migrate a machine and not ever worry about it failing, because you can always go to the snapshot and retrieve data. Now here's something else that I'll add to this. The snapshot is robust enough to actually roll back to, and that's why it's called the rollback folder, because you can roll back to that snapshot. And let me demonstrate that now real quickly. What I'll do is I will insert the rollback CD or USB stick, and it'll actually roll the system back. So what I've done is gone ahead and installed the USB stick for doing a rollback, and I'm going to show you kind of how that works real quickly. So I'll just simply restart this PC, and I will boot up to the USB stick. Get a dialog box very shortly about kind of what you want to do. And there it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say roll back this operating system. I'm going to say OK to this. Performs the rollback. And completes, and it's done. It's rolled back to the previous OS. And end-to-end to roll a machine back, it's even with the boot times and all that thing, it's roughly about 3 minutes to do. And there you are. You're back to where we started with Windows 7. Here we go. We'll go ahead and log in here. Previous user. Again, all the data still completely intact. So the nice thing about that is, you can use Swimage. You can, migrate a PC to Windows 10. No worries at all. You will always be able to get back if you ever need to. Of course, the goal is not to ever roll back, which, be honest, rarely happens. It's rare to have a machine that rolls back, but every once in a while, it's nice when you get something that just is catastrophic and moving forward is not an option. It's really good to be able to roll back. The honest, most use for the snapshot, though, is retrieval of data that got missed, and that is actually used very, very often. I hope you enjoyed the presentation. Give us a call or send us a message on our website if you're interested in getting a full demo with more detail about Swimage. Thank you very much.